We are live.
Good afternoon and welcome to the final meeting of this week of the Senate Government Operations Committee. And today is Friday, January 9th. And we are going to listen to Tim Duggan from the Treasurer's Office. And he's going to talk about some retirement systems. And then we're going to quickly, I hope it's not as detailed as the report that I got right at lunch, with Act 57 about the relief that we afforded some of the municipalities. I'll just remind the committee, Tuesday, we are going to do a joint meeting with the House Government Operations Committee. We do have some training in the morning. Well, that's not a committee matter, but we do have some training in the morning, but we'll adjourn to room 11 at 1 o'clock. And interview the two candidates for Vermont Attorney or Adjutant General. So first up today is Tim Duggan, as I mentioned, and we have afforded an hour. Please don't feel that you have to fill every single second of that. If you go 40 minutes, that's fine. That's fine too. It doesn't really matter. But I think for certainly the benefit of our new senator, it would be a good idea to have at least working knowledge of our retirement systems. And so I'll let him introduce himself.
Senator John Malloy from Fort Leagues.
Very nice to meet you, Senator.
And I think you've been in before, so you might know everybody else in the committee. Okay.
We know Tim.
Well, then welcome in and let's begin.
Thank you very much. Tim Duggan, I'm the Director of the Vermont Retirement Systems in the State Treasurer's Office. Today, I have put together a presentation calling it Retirement 101. I know this committee is not necessarily needing a 101 class, but sometimes it's good just to level set. And what I'd like to do today is kind of cover a few overview points, show you some recent stats from the systems that we administer, and then do a really brief history on some funding matters and sort of where we've been, where we're going.
Okay.
If that works for everybody. So I will aspire to share my screen.
We got this by email, by the way, in case people want to use their laptops.
And look what kind Emery did for me.
Well, there you go.
I know.
He's an outstanding.
I'm lucky one. Outstanding in his field. Like a plumber.
What are you?
Okay, everybody.
Doesn't it take a second? There we are. That's not too glorious.
Does that work for everyone?
Yep.
Okay. Great. I get this. I apologize for this. Okay. So I will one day have to learn how to just flip a page. What I wanted to start with is an overview of the retirement systems and really why we have them. I really like this slide because it kind of grounds us in the purpose of a retirement system. These systems don't exist for their own sake. They're really valuable tools to recruit and retain public servants like myself, like teachers, like municipal employees throughout the state. And what they do is they are defined benefit systems. They provide a modest but consistent, reliable retirement income for the rest of someone's life and for the life of their beneficiary if they so elect. But one thing that folks, a lot of times we're in this building talking about funding and the costs associated with the pension systems. And one thing I think is really important to remember is that these are economic drivers for the state of Vermont. There's an outfit called NERS, the National Institute on Retirement Security, puts together a state-by-state fact sheet about how taxpayer investment in the retirement system trickles out into the economy. And so from the 2025 edition, they do it every other year. From the 2025 edition, they found that for every dollar of taxpayer investments in the retirement systems, 4.5 comes out in economic activity in the state.
That's a great leverage.
That's great leverage. And the chart on the right, I like to put up because, about 75% of our members remain in state.
Yeah. That is key.
Right.
Retention.
And we have, and they're spread out across the state. Of course, there's a concentration in Washington County because of the state offices, but As if you look throughout the counties, 2-3% consistently throughout the rest of the state. So it's a broad-based economic driver throughout the state. And I think that's just a really important idea to keep in mind as we talk about our pension systems.
Yes,
And just to ask Paul, on that slide, you have percent. Oh, sorry, it's a bunch of cronks down here. But do you have, in addition to the percent of the population, do you have any notion of how many you are retained? And some are going to move obviously after they retire, but do we have data on their retention?
Yeah, 75.
that's what it is.
No,
What?
there, but you haven't, I'm sorry, I was just focused on the county part. I was focused on the county.
Okay.
I have percent of population and I was sort of hoping percent retained, but you have just general for 75%.
About yes.
That,
And then the percent of population is in that county. How many of the population of that county
are here and have stayed.
are VISTers, VISTers, VSTers, or VEMRs? So I think that's why we have these plans. That's the value they provide, both to the members in the plan and the state at large. And so I always like to ground with that slide.
It's a great slide.
So oftentimes we really focus on the 3 pension systems and really most of the time on the state teaching system because those are the ones that the state funds. But I wanted to just highlight all the systems that we do administer in the retirement division. We have our 3 defined benefit systems. They're your traditional pension systems for state employees, for teachers, and for municipal employees. Maybe I'll break here because I understand there was a question yesterday about why our state system has some towns and sheriff's offices in them. I think that might have been your question, Senator Bielski. And part of the answer is I don't know. It's one of those things that's always been. So Randolph, Danville, and Bethel are towns that are in the state system. My working assumption, because the state system was in existence prior to the municipal system and has statutes specifically contemplating political subdivisions, is that they were early adopters maybe into the pension system and have always remained in. So we have those 3 towns. And then we have sheriff's offices that are also in the state system. And funnily enough, the statutes contemplate that the sheriff's offices are in the state system. But I want to say about 20 years ago, there was an opinion by the AG's office that looked at the municipal statutes and said, well, they actually could count, they could actually join the municipal system as well, because they're whatever the definition is for the entities that are allowed to be in the municipal system. So what we have is some sheriffs elected to be in the municipal system and some elected to be in the state system. So that's why we have, it's the state system, but we do have a handful of additional reporting entities in that system. Then we have a teacher system, pretty obvious, as well as the municipal system. We also administer a couple of retiree health insurance plans. So we have the one for the state and the teacher system. We'll talk about this a little bit more later. And I also just wanted to note that we also administer some defined contribution plans. There's a DC plan for the state for exempt employees. There's a DC plan for the municipalities for those that choose to join. There are a couple deferred compensation plans. So, that's where you can, for myself, I can just put some of my money away in a tax deferred 457 account. And for the teachers, there's 403B plan. And then we have a small health reimbursement plan for municipal employees that was funded on a couple occasions back in the good old days when we were overfunded as a system. And we were just looking for a way to utilize those resources in a positive way that benefit our members. So while we think mostly about the pension plans, there are a number of plans that we administer. And for those last ones, we rely heavily on some outside partners to help administer them.
Did you have a question, Senator Clark?
Yeah, I'm just interested that the MERS, VEMRs wasn't, that you don't manage their health insurance. Was there a reason for that?
Well, they don't have a retiree health insurance.
Oh, they don't? No, I didn't.
That's why.
I just assumed they had both.
And that's why that health reimbursement account was funded back in, I want to say like 06, wait, somewhere around then, right before the.
The Great Recession.
I'm sure they would enjoy it if you want to do it.
Well, sort of.
Yeah.
Right, so I wanted to quickly just talk about, what is a pension? I think everyone probably knows, but it doesn't hurt to just refresh that basically a pension it's an amount certain that you're going to get for the balance of your life. And it's determined by a number of factors. Most importantly, it's what system and group are you in? Each system and group have their own rules and terms. But broadly speaking, what you're going to have is you're going to look at the members' average final compensation over the last 3 years or 2, it depends on the group. What were you making at your highest point? And then how many years of service did you have? And then we have a multiplier. And so you do 1 times 2 times 3 and you get your number. And then we can make all sorts of adjustments to it based on whether or not you want to have your beneficiary continue to receive the full pension, part of your pension.
That's like 75, 25, 50, 50, things like that.
Yeah.
A pension is what we don't have.
Yes.
Great answer.
The benefit systems, and those, couple more points on those. Those are those amounts in order to protect them from inflation. They're increased by a COLA every year. COLAs are different again based on group and system, and it's guaranteed for life. And as I said, the life beneficiary, if that's what the member elects. For our benefit systems, we usually call those OPEB. I'm sure you're familiar with that term. Those systems provide subsidized health insurance. And so what happens is for the teachers, our office procures a insurance policy. For the state employees, DHR does it. And it's a traditional insurance policy. And then the benefit is a subsidy on the amount, and that can range from 40 to 80%. It's all based on what you're employed and how many years you've served.
That's another thing we don't have. Sorry, but that's every time we go through this, I think.
And just a little bit more on how these systems are administered. The three defined benefit systems are governed by independent boards. And they're administered by our team in the retirement division, 18 people strong. And with help from, we have vendors, we have other folks we interface within the office and within the state. One thing I always think is important to point out is that we are lean and not lean. We have about 1 staff member for every 2,860 people who are in our system, and that is more than double the median ratio. We have one of our associations, NASRA, the National Association of State Retirement Administrators. We have them take a look at it. It's hard to compare exactly systems because everyone's set up differently. We're a bit odd in that we're not a standalone agency like most, like many are across the country. So things are a little different, but that kind of ratio to me is important because it shows that we're really lean for what we're doing. I think we accomplish a lot for for the resources we have. What we don't do is investments. VPIC handles the investments. That's a 4-person team, and as I'm sure you recall, recently, I think it was in 21 Act 75, they became the independent commissioner.
Right. We did that.
Senator White.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yesterday, the treasurer had presented us, I think it was sections 18 through 22, had discussed about the investments piece now officially going to VPIC.
That's 8 through 20. So that's the OPEB. So the investment, the pension investments and assets, about $7 billion. That's always been in the VPIC.
Okay.
The OPEB, approaching about 400 million right now that we just started pre-funding. That has remained with the treasurer as the sole fiduciary. And the proposal for this year is that we move that into VPIC to align with our pension investments.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We won awards. This past year, we received awards for administration of different plans. The Independent Board Council, which is the associations that we belong to, they look at a series of metrics to determine whether or not we are adhering to best practices, and we are. And so I wanted to point that out.
Yeah.
That's great.
Um,
Toot your own horn.
Things are going well. So the next few slides, I don't want to belabor these, but I thought they'd just be a nice resource for you folks because, again, so often we're talking about funding, but I want to just have like sort of your quick stats, who's covered in these systems. So this is the state system, and quickly who is covered in them, how they're funded, and how they're governed. And then the chart on the right shows just population numbers. I think what's really interesting here to see is what an average benefit is. The average monthly benefit is just over $2,000 in the state system. So again, it's not, it's a very meaningful and reliable source of income. It's not, folks getting rich on, I think it's a really helpful kind of grounding number to let folks get a picture of what our system's all about. And then at the bottom, I just wanted to give a quick financial picture. You've got our assets, you've got our liability, and then the bottom number is our funded ratio. That's the one that we're always very keenly aware of as the summer ends and we get into our evaluation season. The next page is also the state system, but it's the retiree health benefit. So again, some quick stats, and as you see, not funded nearly as well at that point at this time, but we're at the very start of our funding journey, and the work that the legislature did in Act 114, I just think is incredible. If you look at how it's progressing, the amount that we are going to save taxpayers over the long haul,
Great.
it's really stunning. So kudos to all of you on that, and we are keeping a close eye on it. And it's why we're proposing in some of the proposals we have to, we view them as evolutions of the work that this body has done over the past decade or so. Keeping the chair's note in mind that a shorter presentation would not be unwelcome. I'm not going to go over the other stats. You have them and you can review them at your leisure. I'll just note about the municipal system that's a little different insofar as the municipals fund that. Yes, the municipalities fund that, not the state. So a little different on that.
Just they're the ones that are funded the highest too. I mean, as far as percent.
Interestingly, though, they are funded the highest. I think in some ways that's probably a factor because they're a younger system. They were the last one created, so their cash flows are much more positive because when you start a new system, you've got all actives putting in, you don't have retirees drawn out, and so there's some of that at play there.
But has they been going? How many years have they been going though?
74. Yeah, in pension terms.
Okay.
I think the teachers were 47,
Oh.
and state number up, and we'll have to look it up.
Yeah, I guess as it gets, it's like.
Yeah,
But their average monthly benefit is half.
much less. Yeah, I think probably.
My guess is their pay is substantially less too.
I think that's probably right.
Municipal pay is on the whole modest.
That's right. So really just some stats for you to take a look at. And then at some of those supplemental retirement plans, I didn't put all of them here, just the big ones. Empower record keeps them for us. And I just wanted you to be able to see the number of people in the defined contribution plans and then the deferred compensation plans. And we have over 1.1 billion in assets in those plans. That's in individuals' accounts, so not pooled like the pension and benefits funds are, but in individual accounts. So those are the plans that we administer with some stats. Hope that's helpful. I wanted to turn, because I think the big issue always is funding when we come over and talk here. So I wanted to start with just the real basics. It's not rocket surgery. The pension fund is a big fund. We have three sources that go into it. We have employer contributions, employee contributions, and then we have investment earnings. The goal is to leverage those investment earnings as much as possible to save monthly for taxpayers. And on the outflows, we have your benefit payments and we have expenses. That's the expenses of me and my team running the system, our vendors, our IT, all of that stuff. Over the life of the plan, it operates on a really simple formula: contributions plus investments equal benefits and expenses. What we're doing as we're doing all this actuarial valuation work, we're trying to figure out how much we need to put in contributions so that we can make this formula work to the best benefit of the state and members.
That's a good image.
Yeah, it is.
It's a very helpful image.
It was I went to a funding conference this summer and I still,
Yeah, that was like the first time I think I've ever seen that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it helped. I mean, I've been doing it for a number of years. It didn't help me. That's why.
Yeah, it was like, because then the levers at the bottom in particular, like you could turn off benefits, you could turn off expenses a little
And
bit.
what you
but-
did in Act 114, you turned up the contributions.
Right.
You know, so, yeah,
No, it's right.
those are all levers there. So a little history, we could go deeper into it another time if you'd like to, but you know, one of the things we're talking about this year is funding policy task force. I think Treasurer Pichek was in yesterday talking about that. And kind of to ground on that, in 2008, we started our 30-year plan, closed plan to pay down the unfunded liability. And as you see from this chart, really got hit hard in the great financial crisis. And then it's been a steady reduction in the funding percentage through 2020. The reason for that is because, getting back to the contributions, we weren't putting sufficient contributions in. You can't go from 0 to 60. I mean, folks know better than anybody. You can't just come up with a huge pot of money right away. So you had to ease into it. So at the start of the 30-year period, it was really designed to be backloaded. And over time, you've taken efforts to move that up. Initially, the unfunded liability payments were set to increase by 5% a year, really backloading. I think about 10 years ago, you changed that to 3%. So you're kind of flattening that curve. And then in Act 114, you did the plus payments, the additional $15 million for each system you're putting in on top of the ADEX. And that's all had the effect of flattening that curve and hopefully, and as we've been experiencing, seeing the ADEX, the amount we're asking every year, levelize and not be such stark increase. That low point there in 2020, that followed an experience study that we performed where we realized that we were expecting to earn 7.5% on our investments. And we realized that was just not happening, not the right amount. And so we reduced it to 7%. And that's where you see that dip going right in there in 2020.
I'm not too sure 7's right.
Senator Mihovsky.
What is the average over the last 3 years? Because my understanding is we've had a couple really good years that have been well over 7%.
I don't know that I have a 3-year average. I think these might have 5-year average, but I think it's around 10. All right. Yeah.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, it might be a little. So things have been working well, but I like to do this slide before talking about, so what happened? We did that big experience study, a couple of years in this building with the pension task force that everyone remembers, and that resulted in Act 114. And that's where we kind of hit all those valves. There was the significant one-time contributions that went in, the plus payments that are now going in every year. We increased member contributions, and actually those are still increasing. I think next year will be the last one where they'll be fully phased in. Made changes to the COLA and some other system benefits. So that was the money coming out valve. And then probably most significantly, we decided to refund our local benefits, immediately reducing our long-term liabilities by $1.7 billion. And as we studied last year, over the life, if we keep on our commitments through 2038, 2048 respectively, that's $6 billion in savings that's going to generate. So really important work and paid off.
Senator Middleton?
Remind me, I know I worked on 114, but that feels like approximately 6 lifetimes ago. That $6 million in savings, that's not gonna go anywhere, or is that just freed up for general fund use?
What that is that it's money that you don't need to come up with because of investment earnings or the put in more money to last year and today. So that's all going to earn money over the long haul, and that money that it's earning, that's that investment type that's coming in. That is adding to the fund, so contributions don't have to be as much.
Okay, so that savings is earmarked so that contributions don't need to be as much. Will that drive contributions down from what they are now?
Well, our trajectory over the life of the through 2038 on the pensions is that they're going to be about flat, slightly increasing.
Okay.
So it is having that effect because every year we realize that extra $15 million. Every year we'll realize the gains on it when we reset the next year's amount that we're asking. So we're realizing this. It's not like a money that's going to appear as there's an expense item that we no longer have. It's gone. Where that would happen is in 2038, where that unfunded liability is fully paid off, and then there's a massive amount of money available to use for other things. But we'd like to talk about that.
Okay, then I won't ask my next question. I'll let you talk about it.
Well, feel free. I'll get to it. It's
I
one
think
of our-
we're gonna get to it. I'll wait for you to get to it and I'll see if I still have a question.
Sure. So this chart kind of expands out the view 5 more years after the bad times. And if you look at where we've rebounded since 2020, it's really a great story. Up to 73% on the state system, up from, I think we're at 51% on the teacher system, up to 63%. So
Right.
really strong progress.
I think it's the thing John's the happiest about that he's
Yes,
learned in
teacher
the
training.
committee is where we are with pensions now.
Big sauce kitchen today.
Because we were in the house together and John was on appropriations and it was a very different.
Oh, God, yeah. It's awful.
Well, one thing that I like to emphasize with this graph is this downward slope on the percentages as we were ramping up our contributions. And what's really important is that you had to go through that period to get to the upward trajectory that we're now on. And it's why I think you'll hear Treasurer Pichek, you'll hear me anytime I get an opportunity to say it, that these years now, just like the back end of your mortgage, are the critical time to make sure we stay on track with these payments, because this is the time after
Playing your
paying your interest
Yeah.
the whole time, you're finally getting down in principal, right? You're finally seeing some benefit. That's why I should say it. But it's hard to think that you have to kind of give away 15 years of declining funding percentages, but that was as contributions were getting up to where they need to be. So. And then I just wanted to come back to the municipal system funding quickly. While they're have the highest funding ratio at the time, they're actually not quite paying the full actuarially recommended amount. And so their funding percentages have been declining over the past few years, with this past year, because of the strong investment returns, being the first uptick in recent years. What we and this body have done to address that, I don't think it was last session, I think it was one before. We worked with all of the municipalities, the unions, and put together a package, a 4-year package of increases where each side, the employees and the employers, would increase their contribution rates by 25 basis points a year. So over the course of the 4-year package, each side goes up a whole percent, 2% total. And so it's making steady progress. That 4-year package was on the tail end of another 4-year package. So this is a process that we've been doing, I think, with some great success. And I think everyone understands the need to do it. All of the municipalities, legislature, everyone's been really strong partners in making sure this gets turned around. So it's not getting to that 100% by 2038, like the other systems are currently on trajectory to do. But as Treasurer Pichek will always say, the thing that he's going to look at is what's the trajectory of the system? Is it going down? Is it going up? And before we made the changes, this line going out was pretty flat. And so now it's ticked up. That's good. We keep an eye on it. If things are looking like they're going to be a challenge, we're going to go back out to all the stakeholder groups sooner and get talking. So what are we taking away from this year's pension valuations after 2025? It's a strong year for plan investments. There's no other way to look at it. $603 million came into pension systems, not from taxpayers, but from our investments. And one of the ways that we make sure our yearly asks are reasonable and not kind of wild ups and downs is we smooth in our gains and losses over a rolling 5-year period. So that's why we've now had a number of gains. We worked through a really bad year a few years ago, you probably remember. And we now have over $165 million in deferred investment gains. And so those funding percentages that I told you about, the 63 and 73%, they pretend like that 165 million isn't there. And that's going to be kind of a tailwind at our back as we go into future years. We just don't
Like
recognize.
reserve or something.
Yeah. So
But if something went bad,
it would get eaten up,
okay.
but it would get
It's sort of
eaten
like
up.
this, egg fund. It's like we have that reserve. Use for the hat.
So yeah, the annual increases in the ADEX on the pension side have stabilized. Going to be a different story on the OPEB side. We'll talk about that. And a real important note we got to, I think last year, May this year, is all our plans are cash flow positive net of investments. What that means is what's coming in from the employer and employee contributions is enough to cover our benefit payments. And
That's great.
that 603 is all going to do the work of meeting what we need to make for the current year and putting some away on top of it. So it's a really strong place to be. And that's kind of what I was talking about when I said we had to do that work to get up to the contribution levels. We're going to have to stay high because ultimately you want to put in less than the full amount of the benefits and rely on those investments. But you got to get funded first. So that's the work we're doing right now. And the ratings agencies are noticing, and it's helping us as Treasurer Pichek is going out and doing bonds.
Right. Well, can I just,
Yes,
can we have gone down, our rating has gone down in the last couple of years, and now when do we get reevaluated?
I'm going to defer that because I know my own limitations to Treasurer Pichek and the financial team. I think every time we issue, we get looked at. I don't think there was any change when we just issued some debt a few months ago.
Right, because we went down from AAA to.
That was a long time ago, though. That was
Our memories are off. But have we reclaimed? We're not back up at AAA.
we're not back up at AAA, but we've been stable or positive, I think, for a while now.
Yes, I appreciate that, but we're not back to where we were.
Right. Probably due to the fact that Chris Roop has an excellent deck. I saw him present to House Appropriations yesterday, and he can get into some of that. His grounding slide is more financial in nature, and it shows a graph from the CDAC reports. That's our Capital Debt Advisory Commission, and it shows where Vermont is in total debt, net taxpayer supported debt compared to other states. And because of our pension and OPEB obligations, we're on the higher levels. So it's probably because that overall amount is pretty high, but all of our practices, I think, are recognized as being very strong. Consensus budgeting, our funding policies and what have you. And this is just a illustration of that stabilization. If you combine the two, we're up for the pension system AX about 3%, a little over 3% if you have it. It's two and change in one, 3 and change in the other. So huge amounts of money, no doubt, but it's not the steep increases that we saw before. So that's great. That's the pension system funding. And now a quick note on the OPEB system. You know, one thing that's always fascinating to me to see is, and some folks here might remember that we were actually negative. We had a negative balance for our teacher system not very long ago. The benefits were funded. They were initially funded out of the corpus of the pension trust, which made it challenging to earn a return. And when they were pulled out, we used an interfund loan to fund it. Finally paid that back around 2019. But as you see, once you committed to pre-funding, it's been a steep increase in funding level and substantial assets. So just this year, for example, you know, it's not nearly as much as what is in the pension system, but we earned $36.3 million that, again, we don't need to ask taxpayers for to fund those benefits.
Is there anything else? Oh,
Thank you, though. Very attuned.
well, I watched for the,
So I was just taking, so I was hoping to just take a minute to talk about some work we've done recently. I think Treasurer Beachek talked a little bit about it yesterday with our retired teachers healthcare plan. As I mentioned before, we don't contract for the state healthcare plan. DHR does that. Our responsibility is the teachers healthcare plan. And this summer was.
And this is what took you, sort of hijacked a bunch of you in terms of your time. This is the 50% versus 16%.
You got it. That's it. And so
And those figures.
I appreciate you remembering that. It's a lot of work that went into it. And what is really rewarding on our end is to see, you know, after we made the change, we saw our prior vendor fold, right? Vermont Blue Advantage no longer providing service to anyone in the state.
I was right with you.
Yeah. When we got the 50% increase, we had to figure out what we were going to do. We had a 10% cap negotiated in our contract, but we had a reality, you know, we only had 6 months till January 1st was coming and we had 7,000 members that we need to make sure we had a sound insurance plan for. So we did an incredible amount of work, and I just can't sing the praises of our team enough because while these are really substantial cost savings, the thing that I just don't want anyone to forget is you know, you're retired, when you're anyone changing health insurance, it is not fun. It's nerve-wracking. You're hoping that things are going to work as well as they did before. And, you know, I'm going to knock on wood, things are looking good. We just went live on January 1st. It's the start of the year. We've been working through any issues. You know, we went with the vendor HealthSpring that has been providing insurance for the state colleges retirees. So, you know, we did all our due diligence to talk to them, figure out how the plan was going for them. And I think we're in a really good place. And to the point of savings, you know, when you look at just premium savings, a rough cut shows about, you know, $11 million in savings on premiums this year, with about 3.2 of that inuring to the benefit of members, their share, and the state, you know, that subsidy we talked about, it's about $7.8 million. But then when you think about what we put in the ADEC, that annual contribution, that's going to save $20 million this session. So it's $20 million we're not asking for, that if we had just moved forward with that 50% increase, we would have been.
Senator Clarkson.
So, yeah, that story impressed me when Mike talked about it yesterday. The question I have for you is, and it's puzzled me, because you chose a vendor that, I don't know how to ask this question. Are retirement plans not subject to the community rating requirement for all our other healthcare insurance programs? Because you chose an insurance company I've never heard of. And it's not one of the two that we have approved because they are willing to comply with community rating, which is why we don't have as many insurance companies functioning in Vermont as some people would like. So that's the question. Are retirement plans exempt?
I think the Medicare Advantage plans are because they're CMS regulated, not Vermont regulated.
So they're not regulated by us.
Correct, except for I think there's some pieces like in the marketing. So there's some, I think, smaller pieces where there would be a state touch. But by and large, they're regulated by CMS.
Okay.
Very tightly.
How interesting. So I had just assumed all of our healthcare insurance was regulated by us and therefore subject to community rating.
Yeah, I don't believe VBA was our
Oh,
product.
look at John. John clearly knows better. Yeah,
Only about,
just the individual market.
only about 50%, about 50% is from the feds. That you can't touch that.
Well, we have TRICARE and Medicare and,
But you can't.
right. And as I
Medicare, you
right.
can't. Medicaid, you can up to a certain point. But not.
And TRICARE. Yes, thank you.
And while not as, the numbers aren't as stark, we do have, we still have Beehive providing insurance for our non-Medicare eligible retirees. So those who are not, retired, but they're not yet 65. And our board did some work to align the benefits specifically with certain drug costs, to align the benefits that are offered with the active teacher plans, which reduced our premium rate increase by 2%, and it reduced our ATEC by about 500,000 on its own. So at both levels, I think the message that I wanted to give is that, our board and our office is very serious about trying to manage the cost that we can. It's healthcare in Vermont. There are limits, as you know. But this year we've done a lot to try and make sure that the plans we're offering are both sound, strong benefits, strong service, and are affordable as any plans can be these days. And one thing that, I guess I wanted to look back a little bit on the history. It's rare that we can say that cost of the typical Medicare eligible comprehensive plan in 2026 is cheaper than it was in 2021. So this chart, as we were looking for alternatives this year, when you look at that blue bar 2026, we looked at, well, what if we just returned to our traditional Medicare, and that the premium is that top blue line. It would be a significant increase. If we had stayed with our incumbent VBA, we would have been at that yellow line. But you can see by the black line that extends throughout where we were in 2021 is higher than where we are today. That is a remarkable story in Vermont. And I guarantee if the service wasn't there, you would hear about it. And our members aren't shy about communicating with us. And I think we have great teams that takes those communications, takes the feedback, and tries to deliver the best product that we can.
Is there anything else?
The transition to Health Spring, did that happen January 1st,
Yes.
2026? Okay, so we may still hear.
Oh, yeah. And we are.
Okay.
No doubt. I mean, anytime you're gonna, I wasn't in my current role. I was general counsel when we did the transition to VBA. And anytime you're going to transition that many individuals, there's going to be provider confusion, billing challenges. It's going to happen. We have multiple times a week meetings with our vendors, our consultant. We have a whole team. We all get together. We have a leadership one. We have a broader one, making sure that we're troubleshooting any of these issues. They're going to happen. And ask to you is if you hear anything, please let us know.
That to tag on to Tanya's question, we will hear. I mean, if teachers, if retired teachers in our neck of the woods have questions, I assume they would call maybe the MEA first. I don't know.
I was going to say, I know a guy who they might talk to.
So Colin's over there, but so Colin, would they would tend to call you first before they call us. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Mark Hage, so Colin Robinson, Vermont NEA, Mark Hage is our Director of Member Benefits, who works super closely with Tim and his team to troubleshoot issues that come up, whether they first call Mark or they first call folks in the retirement division.
I do want to thank your team. I had a lot of questions about this transition when it was announced, and your team was really, really helpful in walking me through it. So thank you.
That's great. So just some high points on our OPEB pre-funding.
You already have a lot of it.
I got a lot of highlights. It was a good year.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
we have 11.8% returns on our OPEB plans.
Wow.
You know, fundamentally, it's healthcare, and that's where you saw our ADEX stabilizing on the pension side. You're not going to see that on the OPEB side. And you turn to the next page, that's where it shows up. The increase on the state system is about 12%. The increase in the teacher system is about 25%. I can tell you a little bit about why that is. The state, so we expect, our assumption, our actuaries tell us to expect near-term increases of 9%, which is wild, but that's what we should expect.
From investors,
No, from
Oh,
increases in premiums
Oh,
annually.
increasing premiums, right?
That's one of our assumptions, and they had to up that from like 8% to 9% this year. And when you up an assumption like that, it results in more money being going. This is saying you got to expect more of these costs coming. So this,
I guess I'm a little curious. I understand why it would go up. The cost of healthcare is rising, but to go up to 9%, yet we're seeing the average cost of healthcare rising by, what was it, 18% or 23%, sort of depending on what system you're looking at. So I'm curious why 9%, that feels awfully low.
9% is that it is, so they have a range, and I think their range is from like 9 to 11-ish. So we're on the lower end of their range, but this is specific care. You know, most of it is Medicare eligible care, which is going to be different because you've got the Medicare piece covering all of it. And there are different assumptions that I can't speak to the details of those assumptions really. I could get the actuaries to kind of give me some detail on it, but we rely on them to basically tell us it's what they use for their national business. It's what all plans are using. And this year, the state plan came in at about 9%, which is why you're seeing only about a 12% increase there, because the cost there was just that trend assumption increase. That's why it increased so much. On the teacher side, it was that trend assumption increase, plus the fact that we ended up with a 16% increase on the Medicare side and a 20% increase on the non-Medicare side. So not only did we get hit on the assumption change, but we also got hit on the actual premium experience year. So that's why it's much more on the teacher side.
Yeah, no, and I would expect that. I guess where my concern lies is that the actual increases get bigger and bigger and bigger each year. 9% feels really low.
It's interesting because one thing is they set a near-term rate of 9%, but then they trended over, I think, a 12-year period down to 4%. The assumption, it's actually pretty interesting, is that you can't forever grow healthcare at 9%. Otherwise, there will be nothing but healthcare in the economy, right? So,
That is the direction we're headed.
I feel like it's, the giant amoeba that ate the rest of the economy.
If only there were some sort of universal solution to this.
Exactly, only. And for those of us who lived through the shopping proposal, it gets more irritating. It's really frustrating.
Yeah, what I see year after year is that the healthcare cost increases get bigger and bigger and bigger. And so that 9% makes me nervous, but I appreciate that you are not an actuary and did not do that math.
yeah, they're looking at that nationwide, and actually the one thing I can say about their assumptions is that they are mostly national assumptions that they're utilizing. They're not specific to Vermont. So
That makes me more nervous knowing that Vermont has the most expensive healthcare premiums in the country.
Yeah.
So it makes me even more nervous that number may be way too low.
it may be low, and I think that's for our pension system experience studies. We do those every 3 years. This trend assumption we revisit every year.
Okay.
And the one thing I think I would say is that we've been in the old days, healthcare, that assumption used to only change from the actuaries every couple of years. Now they're even doing like mid-year changes in their assumptions. So we've been steadily increasing in each of the past, I think, 3 years. What I don't think we want to do is a very fast increase to get to a more realistic. I think we want to continue our pacing it in and seeing what's happening so that we could not, this is a big increase. If we had jumped more, it would have been, it's that balance that I think we're trying to accomplish.
Are there any actuaries or any is there a way in the coming years actuarial review of this OPEB increase or the, to bring someone in who can look at Vermont a little bit more specifically?
You know, they had done it a few years ago. We can get them to create something that look. They found, I remember Treasurer Pierce had them do it because I think she was concerned about what she was seeing nationally. And as I recall, it wasn't markedly different. I think maybe Vermont was a little lower at the time. I think it was lower at the time. I'm gonna go back. I still speak with her regularly. I'm gonna ask her about that.
Yeah, I'd be really curious because I know now Vermont is trending quite a ways out as much higher than the rest of the country's healthcare costs. So I'd be interested. I just want to make sure that we don't find ourselves in a position 5, 7, 10 years from now where we suddenly have to have a huge increase because we haven't kept up with the real costs.
Let me talk to the actuaries and I'll just kind of bounce this idea around them with them and see what I can find out.
Awesome, thank you.
That's great. Yeah.
So now to the asks.
Now the asks. So there are two main ones. I know there's some position requests and whatnot. I know Treasurer Pichak covered that, but I wanted to talk more about the policy asks at this point. The one is the task force to look at our funding policy, that closed 30-year funding policy that we were talking about earlier. What we'd like to do is to put together a task force of different stakeholders to look at whether or not there's a better way to fully fund our pension systems, but mitigate some risk that we're going to see as we approach 2038. That risk comes in a couple ways. Right now, if we have a few good years with our current plan, that would tell the funding policy to reduce the amount we need to put in. So we've been putting in less. And then if the bad years happen as we approach 2038, we've been putting in less. And then we only have a small amount of time to amortize those losses, maybe 4 or 5 years. That would be a terrible place to be. And I've been putting together a deck. I have some graphs on it about what it could look like. We had our actuary perform some risk assessments so that our boards could kind of understand this issue better. So at that point, if you're going to have a spike in the ADEC, that's going to be, even approaching like 2x year over year, that's going to become untenable. And we want to avoid that. And there are ways to do it. There are some best practices emerging that other systems are implementing, things called layered amortization.
Say that when we get.
Layered amortization, where you just kind of, you close off your legacy liability, and then each year you fund that new plus or minus over a set period. So you have a bunch of layers that kind of hopefully will be offsetting each other. There are policies like that, but the one important thing is that, I think our funding policy has served our state really well. Everyone understands it, is bought into it. And so I think where Treasurer Pichak was coming from was that we would like to make sure that we maintain that buy-in so that everyone understands what we're doing, that everyone's bought into it, and that it's something that can serve us well through 2030. So it would primarily focus on the pensions because that's, we're at the time when we should do it. We're about 12 years out. It's a good time to do it, right? We haven't got to that really volatile point yet. And it's a good time for us to start thinking about it. So that's the first ask this year.
Yes, I'm sorry.
And have you seen this in a bill yet? Is this coming in a bill? We heard the treasurer's bill
That's in that bill.
that is
Yeah.
in. So, and we're not hearing about that till it comes from the
It's
House.
coming over from the house.
He was just over there. He's over right now. And then the second, we talked a little bit about transferring the investment authority from the treasurer to VPIC. The sole fiduciary model that we have is sort of not best practice at this point. It's not best practice to have a single person administer large sums of money. It made a ton of sense when we had negligible or negative assets and we managed them through a trust investment account. Pretty simplistic now as we're trying to really grow these funds and we have a body, VPIC, that's an expert in investing them. I think it makes a lot of sense to do it. I think we didn't do it before when we created VPIC because there were some concerns about whether you could commingle different types of, healthcare assets and pension assets. We've been working through those issues with some lawyers, and I think everyone's comfortable that it's a good structure. So that's why we're proposing that at this point.
Okay. Tim, thank you very much. We appreciate it. You were spot on time-wise.
Oh, good. There's some links on the next page and my contact information if you have any further questions.
And you have the best tie of the day.
Thank you.
So the question we have to ask you is, do you sing or do you play an instrument?
Oh,
Wait, what?
Or are you just an appreciator?
What is the time?
Music.
It's
It is.
music?
Oh, is it? If it's hieroglyphics,
I don't know. I
maybe
think,
it's hieroglyphics.
I think it's just diamond shaped,
So from here, it looks like music.
but that is the question to ask.
No, it's not music.
Maybe it says it's about my eyesight.
I have played the drums in the past.
Oh,
So,
Oh.
but
you still got an
you
answer.
would not want me to do so.
So it's so funny from here without my glasses and without coming up to look at it. Okay, Tucker, doesn't that look like?
She's my ride
Harlem.
home today, so.
Yeah.
Tucker is neutral.
Yeah, it's just a little worrisome if I'm your ride. Tim, good to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
That was
Appreciate
great.
your time.
And Colin, you must.
Are we taking a 4-minute
Tim's doing great work. We
Uh,
appreciate the work.
or 5-minute break?
Good to see you, Colin.
Okay,
Once
let's
you
take a
see-
5-minute break. We'll be back exactly 30.
Oh my God, from here, that tie looked like beautiful music.
I know, I was really, I was like, I'm not sure about.
You're neutral.
I was like, I'm not-
What the